Well, good evening and a very warm welcome to Newsline, live from the Newsfirst studios right here in downtown Colombo. Joining me this evening, as usual, is Mr. Bandula Jayasekara, senior journalist, former diplomat, and nice to have you. How are you?
Thank you, Faras.
It's good to have you, you know, Bandula. And joining us also is Mr. Rusaripala Tenakun, trade unionist, and good evening to you, and thank you for being on our network.
Good evening, Faras.
On this day, almost a whole day after the election results have been announced, I've been wondering why it is that we still have only a Prime Minister designate. Can anybody put me right? Why is this?
I think they have to gazette, you know, and like he's really, gazette, and then only then the president will decide who he'll.
I see. So let me get this right. The process is that they must first gazette the appointment of members of parliament.
Members of parliament, and that to my knowledge, and then after that the president will have to decide on who he'll be appointing as the prime minister.
That's the rule, is it? So we got some.
Yeah, this is what it says. The president shall appoint as prime minister the member of parliament who, in the president's opinion, is most likely to command the confidence of the parliament.
Right. So that says something very interesting. So it is in the opinion of the president. That I see. And Mr. Rusaripala, is that right? Can you add anything to that? Or?
Well, yes, the clause is very, very clear, and it is coming in the amended constitution of this country. It gives very wider discretionary powers to the president, and it is the president who will decide whom he is going to appoint as the prime minister. So until that appointment is done, I believe that there should not be any problem about talking about who the prime minister and when is he coming. All that is irrelevant, no?
Yeah, I think so.
But Sri Lankans seem to have a penchant for speculation. And today there was some press conference, a very American kind of press conference.
Yeah, that's what I saw, like on social media, the Twitter. Yeah. That, you know, lots of journalists were tweeting that there was Obama-like press conference.
Right.
But interesting also for us, they were complaining that it was held outside. I mean, it's very difficult. Okay, in Washington you can have this outside, you know, and the Rose Garden, but then here it's difficult. So these journalists who were tweeting were complaining that it was hot and there was nothing. You should have had it inside a room. That's what I read in the social media, the Twitter.
But this was from Temple Trees,
Temple Trees, yeah.
But I'm told that Temple Trees has a special section that was built in, and lots of money was expended in bringing it up to world-class standards. What happened to all that?
Yeah, there are special sections, you know, and whether we like it or not, in this country, we need air conditioning. But I'm going by, you know, lots of the leading newspapers, the media, the journalists were complaining about it. That they were not complaining about the press conference or what was said, but how it was conditioned.
Well, maybe we journalists have been spoilt a little bit now that there's this media freedom.
Yeah, you have to learn to be in the sun.
I see. Right. Mr. Rusaripala, there must be something a bit more serious going on, because I am troubled that after the presidential election, we had a prime minister appointed almost immediately, and he was a minority prime minister. What's going on? Why is there this apparent delay?
I think that was a bit different to the current situation for us, because
you mean in January?
In January, because that was a sitting parliament,
right,
and the MPs were all sworn in.
Right.
And out of one of those MPs, a prime minister was appointed.
Right.
But in this case, we don't have any sworn-in parliament members yet.
Right.
They are still to they come before the parliament and take oaths. So until that is done, I don't think that.
But the results indicate that the prime minister, the leader of the United National Party, Ranil Wickremesinghe, and his collection of members have got a number that is falling short of the magic 113. So how can a person who doesn't appear to command the majority in the House of Parliament, how can he form a government then?
Well,
They've got 106 seats.
yeah, well, there is a situation here which is much more important than when the Prime Minister is to be appointed. The formation of the government itself is an issue today. Because you must understand, with 106 members of parliament, in a parliament where the absolute majority that is required is 113, there can't be a stable government, if you so-called stable government with 106 members. So therefore, what is important here is how you are going to ensure the absolute majority for the formation of a government. So that is an important factor to be determined.
So what are you suggesting? Do you think that there will be a national government, a form of national government?
Well, the question of national government and how the cabinet or the number of ministers to be appointed, elected, nominated is very clear in the constitution of this country. The constitution, if I am to be more very precise, section, if I am permitted to quote this.
Please do. It's only the constitution after all.
The section 46(5), which clearly says what a national government is. A national government, according to this, the constitution, it says
this is the 19th Amendment.
19th Amendment, currently in force. National government means a government formed by the recognized political party or the independent group which obtains the highest number of seats in parliament together with other recognized political parties or the independent groups.
So, plural, more than one.
Exactly.
But why do we need a national government? Why do we need?
But how is he going to command the majority in parliament? He's only got 106 seats.
What about what we discussed yesterday, the crossovers? Will that happen?
Yeah.
Or does like the President Sirisena wants a national government?
Well, this subject has been openly discussed, and then the former Prime Minister has very clearly stated that he is going to form a government of consensus with all members of the parliament, elected members, represented in the government. So, but that's a one-sided statement.
Is it the same, a government of consensus and a national government?
No,
is that the same?
There is, I see a big difference between the two, because a government of consensus, everybody will have to agree to subordinate their party interests in a national interest. That is the deciding factor.
For a national government.
The individual parties concerned or involved have to decide that we are there to subordinate our party interests in the national interest.
Okay, so then by implication, or from what you are suggesting, who will be the opposition? Will there be an opposition?
This is a very relevant question, because from what we know from the history, the political history of the world, the national governments, the so-called national governments that we have seen or we have heard of, we haven't had oppositions there. At a time of a national crisis, all parties consent to get together to resolve an issue for the sake of the country, in the interest of the country. So there is nobody remaining, there is no residue in parliament left out from the government. But in this case, is it happening?
No, but in Sri Lanka, even during crisis, people didn't get together. They were criticizing. But now, you don't need, who is going to speak on behalf of the people? In Sri Lanka, what happened previously, opposition opposed for the sake of opposing. There are good bills, I think you should support it.
So in this 2015 parliament, who do you think will be the opposition if there's a national government?
So this is what no, I don't think the people voted for a national government. They voted either for the United National Party or the UPFA or for the JVP.
That's not right, because the people have voted with a clear division, if you like. They haven't given anybody the majority.
Yeah, no, it is up to the president now to decide. This is where he plays. You know, he can decide. He's the point. He thought he can say, look, this is what I want to do. These are my plans. First, if you go back, you know, they appointed him. He came as the common candidate. They appointed him. Then only these changes took place.
We vote, His Excellency decides.
Yes.
Is that the right way of looking at it?
There is a broad issue,
Right.
Because in this case, what do we presume the national government to be? Is it a government comprising of all MPs together, or is it a government of some of the groups in parliament leaving somebody out? In which case, there will be somebody acting as the opposition. In such a case, is it a national government?
But again, we have to look, you know.
Is it a coalition government?
Yeah, but see, they have to serve the people. So if they are genuine in serving the people, you don't need all this dilly-dallying. Serve the people. That's what they are for, you know, to look after us and the problems. I mean, are they looking at powers, you know, I want to be this ministry, I want this. That is what has happened in the past.
So do you think that this sort of delay that currently we are experiencing is to do with Mr. Wickremesinghe trying to form the government by attracting crossovers like we discussed yesterday, or is it that he is trying to form a national government at the behest of His Excellency the President?
You see the Prime Minister in waiting.
Or is he the Prime Minister in waiting and he's just waiting?
Well, any of the two can happen.
Yes.
If the first happens, that is, if some crossovers are taken, then there are certain limitations that the country will be
And what are
confronted
those
with.
limitations?
Those are very clearly stated in the constitution of this country.
Share it with us.
The number of cabinet ministers, the number of non-cabinet ministers and the deputy ministers in aggregate form have been clearly stated in the constitution of the country.
How many is that?
30 cabinet ministers and 40 non-cabinet ministers.
Okay.
Including the deputies.
That is if you are ruling on your own.
No, if that is in the event of a coalition government.
So what is a coalition government?
Anybody grouping together in their own interest is a coalition government.
So
Their own interest, not the country's interest.
Well, you can interpret it any other way, in any way you like, but this is what is happening.
But Mr. Rusripala, if Mr. Wickremesinghe was to attract 15 crossovers, would that constitute a national government or a coalition?
That is a question, large issue that we have to find an answer to. It is not very clear.
Where do we find the answer to that?
That remains to be solved. That remains to be solved because...
Is that at the discretion of the Prime Minister?
No, absolutely not. Because the Constitution is very clear that it only in the event of a national government only, the number of cabinet members can be exceeded. That is also with the consensus of the Parliament.
And is the Constitution clear? Does it provide clarity on what is a national government?
No, there we have a problem. It only says the party with a majority or highest number of seats joining with the other parties. That's all it says.
As in plural?
Yes, in plural.
So two parties together does not constitute national?
Well, not in the national government forms that we are aware of. We have seen in the rest of the world.
I see.
Now see, you take Britain, for example, UK in the 1930s, First World War, Second World War, in instances of crisis, there were national governments formed. In those national governments, there was no opposition. Everybody was together. All parties were together. But in this case, unless you have that same unity, can you call such a government a national government? And if you don't call it a national government, or if it doesn't fall within that definition, can you exceed the number of cabinet members?
But I think the cabinet obviously necessarily comes later. But the issue now is that we want to have a parliament appointed, don't we? And then form the government.
Well, in this country, our experience is People are joining the other side or crossing over to the other side, looking at portfolios and looking at
perks.
and perks. So,
But that is,
with that experience,
it sort of goes some way, the 19th Amendment, to try and control that, because the number of cabinet positions are limited.
But was it followed during the interim period? I think there were so many appointed, like during the past 7 months.
I think there is provision in the Constitution for Parliament to decide on that. But that's a little bit of a misnomer, because if they control the majority, they control the
Yeah, but again, it is not the positions, the portfolios, because now we are talking of good governance. See, they are appointed, so they have to serve the people. So, I mean, do you really need these positions and all these power ministerial positions to serve the people, if you really look at it?
So here we have actually a very closed club. Forgive me for being cynical, Bandula. I know that look. Now, for me, it appears that with the passing of the 19th Amendment, Parliament has got a fixed 5-year term, which the least it can be is for 4.5 years, because the President can dissolve it only 6 months prior to the end of the term, okay? So in this 4.5-year minimum term, and a maximum of 5 years, it's a closed club, and nothing to preclude members of Parliament from jumping from here to there, or from there to there, or in the middle. And so they are trading. They're trading.
That's what they've been doing for years, trading.
So there's nothing going to stop that.
In their own interest. So this is why people have to put pressure. We are talking of the civil society, we are talking of the masses, we got to put pressure. Because of that, that's where I would say people's power. I don't know whether Mr. Rusipal would agree. Because we are more educated voters, that's what we should do.
How do we stop it?
no, well, the situation here is slightly different, because first the government has to be formed. The government with an absolute majority, so that it can run without any problem.
Absolutely.
It must be formed.
Indeed.
Now, to form that, you will have to have, in this case, the present case,
Yes.
we have to have people from the other side coming in.
So does this then mean
Yeah.
that we will then have the likes of the TNA and the JVP and the other little EPDP and so on
SLMC.
to form a truly national government?
But again, for us, like IT would say, Prime Minister in waiting, Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe said today that he had a good discussion with President Sirisena. So we'll have to wait and see the outcome of that discussion.
And what of President Sirisena's own party? Mr. Rusiripala, does the Constitution provide for the President to ask the UPFA, who've got 94 seats, to see if they can form a national government?
Well,
Or is there no provision for that?
no. According to the Constitution, it is the President who has the absolute discretion to call upon the person whom he, in his opinion, thinks commands the respect of the Parliament to form the government. So therefore, the numbers are not stated there. He, in his own discretion, if he feels that this is the person who is going to have the confidence of the Parliament, he can call upon that person. Of course, it rests on that person to maintain that confidence and to keep that. If he cannot, well, that's a different issue. But the discretion absolutely is with the President. The clause very clearly says there are no other appendages to it.
I see.
But the situation here is to form a national government or to call a coalition a national government and increase the number of cabinet portfolios beyond what is stipulated in the Constitution is definitely going to cause a problem.
A national government should be in the national interest. I mean, I'm not playing with the word, but it should be in the national interest.
Of course it should.
Do you think that will happen? It will be in their interest? Again, I want to ask this because it's not. That's what the meaning of the national government.
I think the national government necessarily, as the word implies, should consist of all the parties.
The interest of the nation, but
Because then it would be truly representative of the people and the people's mandate, the people's choice.
what about the TNA, the JVP?
Yeah. Ideal situation is for all parties to get together in the interest of the country if they can, and form a government jointly to carry on the governance of this country. But is that happening? Already parties have expressed their opinion. We are not joining hands. We want to be ourselves. So therefore, in that situation, what we can presume is that there is always going to be a factor or section which is not joining a so-called national government, which means it is not a national government.
So which means this notion of national government is nothing more than a fairy tale.
Unless it is to circumvent the provisions in the constitution to increase the number of cabinet portfolios for the sake of taking people in, there is nothing else that we can see.
So it's a ruse then?
Looks like.
A fairy tale.
A fairy tale.
Fairy tale. I agree with you.
A pipe dream.
Pipe dream.
It's only a ruse in which the United National Party and its leader can get a few more people in and secure for themselves 4.5 years minimum of a term in Parliament. A dream that has eluded Mr. Wickremesinghe for, I think, 29 times before this. Well, elections anyway.
More so, I should say, when this concept of the national government is being prophesied at a time when there is no crisis situation visible in the country. Now for us, we were told that the economy is okay, the salary increases were given, and various perks can be given, prices can be reduced.
Everything
there is no economic crisis. And politically, everybody is claiming that we had the most peaceful election ever we had in this country. So politically also there is a very stable situation. What is the crisis that we are talking of? So there is no basis for a national crisis.
There's a crisis in forming a government.
Yes, I think it's self-made. So obviously the United National Party feels that they've delivered on the economy, and that's why the people of Sri Lanka have given them a vote, but several votes less than a majority to do it on their own.
But
do you think, on a philosophical note, do you think that the people of Sri Lanka have done this deliberately because they want to force their politicians into a position where they will achieve the middle path, the path of moderation?
For us, if I have to look at it this way, the people believed what the politicians were claiming they are going to do in the future. So they paved the way for it. They said they are going to be unity, they are going to have consensus, they are going to have all parties together, and so they left it at that. Okay, you have 106, you have 95, now you get together and do it.
All in all, this Parliament is set to be rather an interesting place. We have for the first time ever, the former head of state, who will be returning in a statement issued today, who will be returning to Parliament, this time though as a elected member of Parliament with 429,000 votes. Another record for this national treasure. Yes or no?
Or for another record for Sri Lanka, I would say.
I see you avoiding this national treasure thing. Well, you know, Mr. Rusaripala, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on our network. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you, Faras.
And Bandula, as always, thank you so much for coming in here. And we look forward to having you again tomorrow.
Thank you, Faras.
In the meantime, having spoken about order and rules and regulations, perhaps it's time to share this thought with you. Good order is the foundation of all things. On that note, I'm going to be wishing you a very good evening, good night, and God bless.